Good morning, friends. Thanks for tuning into another live demonstration with our Scumbassador, Kaitrin Ryanne from Boston today. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you, John, for joining us. He is our beautiful model that you see before you. Kaitrin, please take it away.
Hi, I'm Kaitrin Ryanne from Boston. Everyone likes to ask if I park my car in Harvard Yard. I do not, but I will go to Fenway Park and have a Frank with you. Today, my client John, we're going to be doing a variation of the classic executive contour on him. John actually had grown his hair out probably about as long as mine. And what was it, in the fall or in the spring? In the fall, we just cut it into more of the executive contour shape. He's been letting me have it a little bit of volume here. So that's what we're going to do for him today. Before I get started, I think that it's important to kind of mention that within men's hair cutting, a lot of times the shape gets lost within the parietal ridge here. So that's the make it or break it point. We're taught sometimes to follow the shape of the head, when a lot of times within classic cuts, we want to create a lean masculine shape, which means we have more of a square shape here. So it doesn't mean that everybody's getting a right angle on the side of their head. It just means living within that corner there is the parietal ridge, and that's what we want to try to preserve some length in. So in doing that, we want to separate the top of the hair from the bottom. So we're going to put in a primary parting to make sure that we do that. So in my water bottle here, I just have a little bit of our hair tonic. It helps kind of break down any product in the hair, act a little bit as a cutting lotion for us today. All right. So our primary parting is always going to be, you put a comb on the side of the head there, where it starts to bend. It's in the recession point here. We're going to separate back. And as we're moving towards the back, it ends up dipping down. Want to make sure we have nice, clean partings here. All right, so as we get through the back, see how that kind of dips down? Looks like we have a curved line, but if we take our comb, we can run our comb straight down that line. That's the best way I have found to check, to make sure we're in the right spot. All right. So just so that everybody knows, when we're cutting, we want to make sure that our client is right at about chest level, which means I'm going to pump him up just a speck more. If I am not standing directly in front of my section, it's just that you guys can see that. So primarily you want to make sure you're standing directly in front of your sectioning and that you're moving with it around the head. So I'm going to use my comb and start over the ear because that's the flattest spot of the head. In the front, we start to round a little bit, and right behind it, we start to round. So I'm going to create a baseline. That baseline is going to follow that primary parting that we just placed in. That's going to be our guide for the entire haircut. So right here, anybody that has trouble cutting men's hair, the scariest part is how do we make this part short, and then how do we get into length up here? If you have a baseline that you can get your fingers into like this, that is your safety net. That means you will always be able to transition to the top of the head. So we're going to take off just enough here to make sure we can get our fingers into that later. We want to make sure the spine of our comb is parallel to the floor and that we're pulling that hair directly out from where it grows. Come in here. Also, I want to point out we're cutting at the spine of our comb here because that has the best tension. So once we have our first guide and our baseline, we move forward. So you can see our guide here. And then we have our guide. We have our guide and a guide. We move all the way down that parting. I should also point out that I'm working on the right side of the head first because I'm right-handed. You want to start on your dominant side so that, as you can see when I'm holding my comb with my clipper, I'm always going from my guide into fresh hair. I'm never guessing where I'm going. So now that we have our baseline in there, from our baseline, we're just going to fade down. So we take our baseline in the front there, move down the head. As we get closer to the ear, I start to contour that in, and then we'll go back in and clean that up after. See how we're getting that nice graduation there? With our guide, we're working down our section. You always want to make sure the partings that we're taking, our comb is parallel to our primary parting, parallel to our baseline, and then we're working down from there. So while we're in the back here, we're going to do the same exact thing on the opposite side, but I'm going to make sure I come in almost making a little bit of an X in the back so that I can ensure that I'm not getting a tail right here. So if we go just a speck past that. All right. See how we can already see that nice square shape that has set in? And then we've faded down towards the side. We'll clean up around the edges after. So next, we move over to the other side. And on the other side, we're going to be doing the same exact thing that we just did. We're going to find our primary parting, place that in. All the way down the back here. And just like on the opposite side, we want to check that, place our comb. Comb should be able to go down that whole parting. So because I'm right-handed, once I move over to the left side, I'm still starting above the ear because that's the flattest spot of the head. And we're going to place in, actually, if you want to make sure that you're getting the same length on that side, we're going to place our comb in here, take it over to the other side. Make our little tiny guide there. That way I know that both sides are going to be the same length. Start over the ear right there, and then we're going to move forward. So as we're moving forward, I can cut here for my guide. When I'm moving backwards, I can take my clipper and flip it. So again, I'm going in the same direction because if we remember on this side, I'm coming from the front of the head, working towards the back with my clipper. So if you want to keep some symmetry, all you can do is flip your wrist. I have my guide, and then I'm working towards the back of the head. Come up here. All right. We have that baseline in again. We can see where we're starting to get that shape set in. So then we work from our guide. Our guide is going to be at the top of the comb here. Let me see if I can turn. You can see that a little bit better. Our guide's at the top of the comb. Cut to that. See our guides here. And as we're getting towards the bottom, you just start to contour that in. There's our guide, cutting towards the back. And then contouring in the nape of the neck. Okay, so we have the bottom half of the head done. We put our baseline in so that we know we are going to be able to transition to the top of the head easily. We can leave more length here. We'll go a little shorter, bring this in after we set in the top. All right, the sectioning on the top of the head here. It's gonna be super easy. We're gonna go from the apex of the head. You set your comb on there, right where it starts to bend. We're gonna section the back out. So I should mention, John wears a side part. So if your client comes in with a side part, we always want to be cutting off of that, unless they are a flipper. If they go one way, one day, one way the other, then we'll just cut it directly down the middle. Otherwise, we're going to cut off of that part line. Let's see, from the apex out to the corner right here. This will be our corner section. Easy to remember. So see, we've got our back, we've got our corner, and then we've got our front section here. To show it a little bit easier, I brought my friend Cole. So the X I was talking about in the back, we're just crossing over ever so slightly. The arrows indicate what direction, pulling everything down to our baseline here. Our baseline is now a stationary guide for the top of the head. That is our safety net, remember guys? So the top sectioning would look like this if I could take John's head off and show it to you guys. So this is where we have our back sectioning that we will split in half. This is our corner sectioning that comes from the apex right out to the corner of the temple. And then that's our front sectioning. So while we were in training, we had an amazing opportunity to have a live with Rob and Lane. And Rob called this front section the Tinder triangle because he said everybody on Tinder is taking their pictures up like this, and what are you actually seeing? You're only seeing this front portion. And we're calling it the Tinder triangle because that's going to decide if you swipe left or if you swipe right. And I will forever and always hear, this is the front, but the Tinder triangle. It's stuck in my brain forever. All right, split this back down the middle. So again, since I am right-handed, I'm going to be starting on the right side of the head first, and then I will make my way over to the left side. It's an easy way to just kind of know where you're going and where you're ending. Remember, this is our stationary guide here. I'm going to take a section. So throughout the top, we're going to be doing horizontal sectioning. What horizontal sectioning does is that's going to allow me to maintain weight. If we were doing vertical sectioning, that would remove weight, and then diagonal sectioning helps give movement to the hair. So if there's ever a time where you have really short sides and you want to maintain a lot of length on the side, on the top, and be able to blend it, horizontal sectioning is the way to go. Okay, so I'm going to bring this up here, loose tension. I don't want to have really tight tension here because if I do, that's going to snap back when it dries. So I'm going to bring the comb up, make sure you can see my guide underneath right there. And then these two fingers are going to act as a prop to lock that position in. See how I can't move that anywhere I go? If those were moved off the head, there's so much room for error here. We want to make sure we're coming directly out from that guide, locking it in. That up. Take another section. You get probably about 3 sections out of this. And if somebody has a really strong cowlick in the back, you can actually take the whole section and bring it to that stationary guide, and then with texturizing after, kind of disperse the weight a little bit. Bring this all the way down. You can see our guide there. And as you move through the sections, when you're doing any type of horizontal sectioning on the top, as you move through, you can see sometimes there's not a whole lot to cut there. But what that means is this hair has longer to travel. Therefore, we're maintaining length here. Because what lives here? All the messy stuff. The cowlicks, the whirls, the crazy, patterns in the head. Have you ever seen somebody walking down the street and it looks like they got a number 1 coming all the way up the back of their head, and then there's just this little cowlick waving at you like, hey, I'm not blended in. We are able to kind of hide and work with that cowlick if we're maintaining length and we're maintaining weight in the back of the head. We also can create this nice round shape that is very appealing to the eye. See that nice round shape that we have here? Some people have flat heads. I have a flat head, so if I had short hair, I would need this extra hair in the back here to give that nice shape. All right, moving on to the opposite side. We're going to do the same thing. Take our horizontal section. I'm going to come up from underneath. That allows me to get my guide in there. See my guide underneath? My fingers are stabilized. We're going to work our way up that baseline stationary guide. All right. Next, we're moving on to our corner here. Take a section here. Make sure we keep our clean partings. So once we get to the sides here, I'll spin them around to show you a little bit easier here. We want to make sure we're standing always directly in front of that section and we're pulling it directly out from where it grows. We're pulling that hair directly out from where it grows here. That should be nice and flat. We want to pretend that we're coming straight out here. We've got a marble on that piece of hair and we don't want it to rock in towards the head and we don't want it to fall out. And we have to be conscious of the fact that we're trying to maintain weight and we're trying to build a nice square wall here. If we take this and we bring it down here, we bring it past that guy, what we're doing is we're maintaining even more weight than we're asking for, and we're going to build a really heavy shelf there. If we're bringing this up above here like this, what we're doing is we're concaving that shape that we just put all this effort in to create. So we want to make sure we're coming directly out from where it grows here. So I want to maintain a good amount of length in the front for my client John here. This hair is starting to get a little bit towards the front in right around that recession area. So what I'm going to do is take this, kick my fingers back like that, and create a new guide for the front. What that does is that allows me to start to maintain the length in the front that I want to keep. Down another section. Bring this one straight out. So just to give you another angle to see what this is going to look like while I'm cutting, I'm standing directly in front. Here, we're pulling straight out from where we go. My two fingers are locking it in there. And then when I get to that little front piece, just kicking that back. Down that last section. All right. So now we've got our front section, our Tinder triangle. What are we going to do? Same thing. Section this out. Now that we started to maintain the length in the front here, what I'm going to do, so you can bring this directly out again from where it grows and then tilt your hands back to have the over direction to maintain the length in the front. What I'm going to do is I want to make sure I maintain a good amount here. So I'm going to come past that because remember when I said if we come past our baseline guide here and we over direct underneath it, we're maintaining more weight and more length. I want to be able to do that. So I'm coming down, kicking my fingers back, put that in. Back. So I can show you on this side. We'll bring all this down, past there, kick my finger back. So now we can see that gave us a nice line here. We can see how much we're maintaining in the front. so that we can get that nice pop look. So on this side, there's not really a whole lot here to cut because that's where John's parting is. So we're just going to take those few pieces that we have, bring them directly out, make sure I can see my guide underneath. We're standing in front. And I want to make sure I kick my fingers back just a speck here on this side as well. So what that looks like is we're coming straight out and just kick back just a little bit so that we can hold on to a tiny bit of a fender on this side. If we don't need it, we can always detail that out after. All right. So this is our sketch of our haircut right now. We're not done. We're going to dry this up, and then we're going to go in and do the tapering and then do the transition points with some blending shears. What I love to put in for blow dries is our grooming tonic. This is my absolute favorite. I think I have hooked almost all my clients onto this. It's a great way to just have more control within your hair, haircuts, blow dries. It gives you that little bit of volume, that little bit of grit. Scale to 1 to 10, it's going to be about a 1, but it's a nice base product to then layer on top of. All right, just like we cut from back to front, we're going to blow dry from back to front because we never want to be putting dry hair on top of wet hair because we're defeating the purpose of trying to get some volume, right? We'll start in the back. We're going to make sure that our brush and our blow dryer are working in tandem together. Let me not trip myself while I do this. And we're just going to wrap it around the head. So I had a teacher in cosmetology school, and she told me, she was like, if you can master blow drying with both hands, you'll have the most symmetrical blow dries ever. And that's something that stuck with me. So once I go to the other side, I'm going to switch. in order to more that now, just a little bit, that gives the hair that shape and touch. All right, so this is just our sketch, but we can see that nice shape that we've already set in there. So now we can go back and refine this and make it look real nice. Okay, so first thing I'm gonna do is we're gonna taper this down a little bit. I just wanna see this come in just a little more than I can get with my comb right now. I'm gonna put a 1.5 clip on here. And I'm just going to be coming in at a little bit of an angle. Now, if you want to just be tapering, put your comb on the top of the head here. And now, let me put that down for a second. You put your comb on the top of the ear. Anything that falls beneath that, so in here and in here, your eye is going to connect into a low taper. So if you're struggling with coming up a little too high, you want to make sure you're not coming into your actual fade that you just did. Stay within that range, just below that comb point.
Hey, Kaitrin, just checking in on you.
Yes.
A lot of
Hello.
friends watching from all over the world.
Oh my goodness.
They're all saying hello. Got friends from Philippines, Thailand, Chile, Malaysia.
Oh my goodness.
Reuzel.
Hi.
Yes, you've got a big South American group watching you, and they're enjoying it. So, just wanted to check in.
That's where I'm the most popular, Franz.
Absolutely. I'll leave you back to it. Just checking.
Thank you. Taking that up there. I'm going to put my one clip on, open. So on any adjustable arm clippers, there we go. Open is this, closed is all the way. Open is the half version of whatever number clipper you put on. Closed is the true version of it. You always want to start off open first for the best blending, and then close. What I'm trying to do is just make sure that I'm blending into John's ears here. Come over to the other side, we're doing the same thing. Open. And then we'll close. So coming around in the back, we're going to taper this. Again, much like I said on the side, when we're tapering, I'll see if I can. You want to stand directly in front of it. And if you're not comfortable tapering, I would say do not move your feet. Move your arm to where it needs to go. Because if you're moving your feet or adjusting your weight, that can also adjust your line in the back. You don't want to go above your client's occipital bone. If you do that, again, we're getting into our fade that we have here. If your client doesn't have an occipital bone that really kind of makes itself known, if you take your comb and go from the earlobe across to the other earlobe, that's about the range that you want to live in right there. It's a nice, easy guide. People come with these guides. We just don't realize it. Makes it nice and easy for you. All right. So again, I'm going to put our 1.5 clip on. You can just tilt your head down for me. And then I'm just going to flick up and out. I don't want to put any harsh lines in here. So I should mention, this way that I'm cutting this is our Reuzel way. This isn't the only way. I think that the baseline is the absolute best way for anybody that is not comfortable cutting to really get into men's hair cutting. And then also, it just ensures that you can always transition from the top to the bottom. I could go down to skin here and know that that's going to blend. It's not scary. Put our half on, come just below that. And again, there are many people that would come in, stamp in this line with their trimmer and, you know, just be able to go for it. For me, I am cosmetology licensed, but I worked in a barbershop for 10 years. So I kind of mix a little bit of both worlds. I don't want to be chasing a line up the head. So for me, if I can go in with a clip that I know that I can always blend out and then taper down from there, I can ensure that I'm not getting into like this danger zone here of ruining the cut. And my half clip on. And then no clip all the way open. I found some people get a little afraid in the back of the head. So I don't know if you can see up close. John has some hairs that are growing up here, growing over here, growing down and around that way. It's completely okay to move your clipper in different directions to be able to cut those hairs. We don't always have to stay like this. All right. I'm going to do just a little bit of clipper over comb. Put that in. Basically what I'm doing is I'm coming in, I'm scooping out, so my guide is at the bottom, and I'm just cutting out the middleman here. And on this side, same thing, we're coming in, our guide, our smallest there, coming in, rolling that out. Okay. Clean up the edges real quick, and then we'll get on to some texture. Also, anyone that's nervous cutting around the ears in any way, shape, or form, notice how my finger is here first. My finger's here to move it out of the way, and if I'm going to cut anything, I'm going to cut myself first. I don't want to be cutting anyone, but I would rather myself bleed than my client bleeds. You would probably rather that too, right? Huh? Yeah. Come around to the other side. Okay, so every single men's haircut that I do, I'm going to use some blending shears. I'm always going to, where is this one going? Use it around the parietal ridge. While we were trying to maintain all of that weight and that length around the parietal ridge, it also can get a little bit heavy. So I just want to soften it. For anybody that doesn't use blending shears all the time, I just want to let you know they are used for accentuating your haircuts, never really for fixing your haircuts. I think that a lot of people don't really know exactly where to place them properly. I want to make sure that when I'm coming in, that's how much I'm just softening these ends around the parietal ridge, just very little, just, you know, that's probably about 1/4 inch. I'm not going to come in and stamp that all the way in close, because all that's going to do is create short pieces in there. Short pushes long, right? So could he leave today and it looks great? Absolutely. But when he comes back in like 4 weeks, it's going to be right here. We want to give the client a nice soft grow out. So I'm just going to come right like I did before, roll that in. We're working straight up, just softening those ends. If you ever want to, after clipper over comb, soften those edges a little bit as well, you can go over that. So a lot of times I get asked, why would you not just put a number 3 on there? Well, the reason why is that I can create a customized shape for John and for his head and for his hair with doing clipper over comb. What that allows me to do is follow my comb as a guide rather than follow the head shape. Think about if you are mowing your lawn and you're putting it on the 2 setting. Every single piece of grass in that lawn is going to be the same length. But we all know yards look like this sometimes. Sometimes we know our clients' heads like this. So I'm able to contour the hair to give the outer look of the shape that I like without having to use the actual head shape as my guide. So where we've got a little heaviness in the back here, we're still only working on about 1/4 inch of the ends here. We're just going to follow that up. Just soften that. Right. Onto this side. I don't know about anybody else, but I find myself out in public looking at everybody's hair, judging their hair, wondering, do they use Reuzel? They look like a Reuzel client. My friend and I, who is also a Reuzel Scumbassador, Megan, out in Denver, we were just most recently in Greece. And in the middle of eating lunch, the Acropolis in the background, we see this server, and he comes over and he looks like he's straight out of a Reuzel like catalog. Just like if you made one, that was him. He's on the wall in the Scoring Barbershop. Like, he had an amazing snow white beard, this great hair, and we're on vacation, yet we find ourselves getting his information if he wants to be a model, teaching him about beard care. What products do you use in your hair? Can we send you something? Just when you think you're not on, you're always on. Just want to soften that just a little bit more. Okay. So on the top, again, I just want to soften those lines a little bit. I want to create a little bit more texture in the top. I'm going to just use a bigger texturizing shear and come in where my finger is the stopping point right here. I have my finger on the pivot point, and I can just come in and place that texture exactly where I want it to be. Right where I see the heaviness, I can remove that. Fan the hair out in my fingers. So if I had a client that did not have such great hair as my friend John here and got some nice volume, a quick little trick that I would do is leave a little veil out in the front here, because we never want to have something, you know, directly in the front there. This is a trick where I'm standing behind the client. I'm not telling them exactly what I'm doing. I'm like, I'm going to add some texture in there, because you know, you have like 5 clients you can actually explain everything to. I'm going to stand behind him. Now, behind the chair, this is what I'm doing. This is what it looks like for you guys today. Can you tilt your head down? I'm going to come from about an inch from the base of the scalp. Now, this is my smaller texturizing shear because I don't really want to be able to see it, but I'll place just a couple small pieces in there. I can do one more section here. And what that's doing is setting a foundational support to support these longer pieces here. So see how that already helps hold that up? Back up. Woo, more volume. All right. You know what? Let's get this hair off of you. I'll do yeah. So today I'm going to use a little bit of the texture matte powder, or the matte texture powder. We're going to section this and just lightly tap. If you hold it on the side and lightly tap it, you get just enough that comes out. Again, what this is going to do is help ensure that we get that nice volume here. It's going to add a little bit of grit to the hair. You can use this as an overall styling product, or you can use it just as a base product like this. What you want to do is really work it in the scalp there. Or put a little more back here, like this in your hair. And then also, we've got some Extreme Hold matte pomade. This is my favorite. I think my client's favorite. It has a great hold, a great smell. It's not like cement in the hair, but it's going to keep it in place. I'm going to start from the back and work our way frontwards. I'm not getting all the way down to the scalp here in the front because we already have our matte texture powder in there. Get this off my hands. And then we'll come in with our comb. I like to use the wider teeth in the comb and follow it with my hand so that we get a little more of a natural look. Last but not least, so when I went to the old school last year before the world kind of caught on fire, they had us use these picks. And I'm telling you, this is unlike any other pick I've ever used in my entire life. I think that it's magic, and Robin Lane blessed them themselves and then send them out. And I couldn't find it anywhere when I came back. I was like, what is this? So went to Scumbassador training, and I see, you know, George using them and Nick and staff, and I'm like, so where do you get these picks? Like, I've been looking everywhere for them. And Santa George brought us these, and it's probably my absolute favorite thing on the planet. That was the best part of the whole week. Just kidding. If I want to create a little more separation, I can take my pick and just kind of run it straight back like this. And then sometimes I like to take just a speck more as like a nice little coating over it. See that nice shape we've created there? We maintained that length in the back, but tapered it out to skin. We had a nice parting on this side. We've maintained a lot of volume here. We used our trick to get that nice little bubble. Ta-da! So I just want to thank all of you for joining us today and for having me. And I'm going to attempt for all the countries that we have here. I don't know all of them, but I've traveled a little bit. So we're going to say obrigada, efaristo, dankjewel, merci, gracias. Here, you get the Italian.
Grazie.
Thank you.
That's fantastic, Kaitrin. And John, thank you, and your parents especially, for coming together and creating such a wonderful head of hair. And thank you, Kaitrin, for a beautiful class today. You got a lot of kudos out there. So thank you all for another wonderful week, and we'll see you next week. Kaitrin, if there's anything else you'd like to share, please go ahead.
Just thank you.
Thanks, guys.